Okay, good morning to everybody. Again, my apologies. That was a colleague who had a little emergency and was trying to assist. So my apologies. Okay, today we are going to look at the internal assessment or the internal audit. And there are two critical tools we're going to focus on. And those tools are the internal factor evaluation matrix, one, and secondly, the value chain analysis. And speak shortly about the value chain analysis, which is very, very important and very critical tool that everybody should pay attention to. So just a few housekeeping matters before we get into the sessions for today. And one is that, just want to remind you, this is week 3. And next week we're going to have our first quiz, followed the following week by the first case presentation. So I'm going to urge groups presenting PepsiCo that you should actually by now be meeting, allocating responsibilities, and beginning to analyze the case. So please do not wait until the last minute. Last minute for these cases is disaster. I have put a structure up online giving you guidelines. So the case analysis will be quite comprehensive. And that you have to cover the external assessment, the internal assessment. So in doing that, you have to do your PESTLE, SWOT, 5 forces. You have to construct your EFE, construct your IFE, construct your CPM. You do your value chain analysis, your ratio analysis, look at competitive strategies. So all of these things you need to do and construct these particular matrices. So that's a lot of work, and make sure each group has a leader where you give people deadlines, because I've seen groups wait until the week before to rush the case, and these are cases, folks, you cannot rush these cases. You really need to take, every week you need to be doing a bit for the case presentation. And something you do not do, which I see some groups do, that you allocate responsibilities. Somebody does the PESTLE and the SWOT. Somebody does 5 forces. Another person does the EFE, IFE, and CPM, and they don't discuss. So somebody does a PESTLE and a SWOT, and they have opportunities and threats. And the person who does the EFE do their own thing, and they have their own opportunities and threats. And the person who does the EFE has their own strengths and weaknesses, different from in the IFE from those who are in the SWOT. So when you do that, you're really losing a lot of marks. There must be consistency, linking the results of your PESTLE and your SWOT, and then the results of the SWOT must be linked to the IFE, EFE, and CPM. So that's really how it works. So make sure you're collaborating and sharing information. So one of the reasons why we have the cases is to get you to practice using the tools and understanding how these tools work and how these matrices work. And that's why we want, as people do sections, they need to be able to share, right? Sharing of information with your colleagues is going to be very important. Now, the other thing that is critical is that I've realized in some of my tutorials, a very large number of students are not preparing anything for their tutorial sessions. So they come to tutorials unprepared, just taking notes, right? Like today we're going to do a question, looking at strategic management process, looking at the business model. So by 10 o'clock, we're going to have 10 to 11, 11 to 12, and then 1 to 2. So I will wait to see how many students in those classes have not done the essay. Right? So I want to repeat, folks, as I said at the beginning, the most intense times for study actually would be weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the most intense times for study. If you really want to do well in the course. By week 7, we get into a lot of really complex analysis. So this foundation that we are building, you really need to know these concepts well. And just want to repeat what I said, I think in weeks 1 and 2, that there are some marketing concepts that I don't teach over that you really need to know well. Those are the integration strategies, backward, forward, and horizontal, differentiation, diversification strategies, right? Market development, product development, and those which David calls the intensive strategies,
right? The 5 generic strategies by Porter. I don't teach over those, since you would have done those in marketing. The defensive and aggressive strategies, liquidation and divestiture. These are things you really need to find some time on your own to be able to keep on top of things. So I'm urging you folks, please keep on top of things. Now, in terms of the quiz, I'm going to let you know the areas that are going to come in the quiz, right? You're going to have the strategic management process, right? That strategic management process, you need to know the strategic management process, right? External and internal assessment, right? You need to know the activities, the tools, the concepts of internal and external assessment. So you will know internal assessment deals with, anybody can tell me, external assessment deals with, sorry? SWOT, pestle analysis, CPN, EFE, Porter's 5 competitive forces, right? And then the internal assessment, today we're looking at IFE, the value chain. So these concepts of internal analysis, you are going to internal and external analysis. There are some key terms that we said in the beginning in the glossary that we use in strategy, right? What is strategy? Competitiveness, competitive advantage, right? Sustainable competitive advantage. What are these things related to doing strategy? What is the business model? What is the importance of a business model? And we also looked at the different theoretical perspectives that inform when you're looking externally for an external analysis versus internal. So what are those 2 theoretical perspectives we mentioned that define those persons who focus on the external forces versus those who focus on the internal resources? The IO, which means, right, the industrial organization perspective, and then the other one is the RBV, the resource-based perspective. Excellent. Right? So that's really the range. Internal, external assessment, the strategic management process, the elements of the strategic management process, the key terms about competitiveness, etc., the business model, different types of business models, and those different perspectives that would come. So you really need to know how the tools work, right? So you're not going to get a definition, what is the IFE? So we're going to be testing your knowledge of the structure of the EFE, CPM, and different elements of them, the weights, the ratings, success factors, why do you have weights, why do you have ratings? So you need to know how these things work, why they work, structure of 5 forces, the different elements in 5 forces. So you need to know them well, you can't guess them. So for those students who followed my advice and for the last 3 weeks have been reading steadily, it's just refreshing yourself. If you have not been reading and you don't know much of this stuff, you've got a very, very busy weekend, really to be prepared for next week. Right? So those are the topics really that are going to come. Right? So today we're going to look at the internal assessment. So this is Ben Leonard from a company in the US, and he says the biggest levers you've got to change your company are strategy, structure, culture. Right? And I would add something which says that as the environment changes, you need to change your strategy or strategies, which would lead to a change in your organizational structure, and then which would lead to a change in your culture, your strategy, your systems, your policies and procedures, etc. So this is just a revision. Remember, we touched on the external assessment, looking at opportunities and threats. So for purpose of your cases, folks, One of the major errors that students make is that they don't see the link between doing a SWOT and doing a pestle analysis. It seems simple, but a lot of students make the error. Right? But what's the relationship between the pestle and the SWOT?
We're looking at the business internally with its SWOT, in terms of the strengths and weaknesses and what opportunities you may have with the test analysis. It actually helps, the SWOT helps you, after you determine what, after you identify the business internally, you then see what factors you have to look at externally with the test analysis.
So the pestle helps you to determine what the opportunities and threats are.
So you don't do, sometimes students present the SWOT before the pestle. So I'm asking, but how could you do a SWOT before pestle analysis? Because the pestle provides you with all the external factors for the opportunities and threats. So if in your case you present the SWOT first, straight away I flag it. How did you know what to put in your SWOT? So there are some sequential steps that you really need to follow. And remember, what drives a business would be the vision and the mission, right? Your vision and your mission, and everybody would know what the vision is and what a mission is. And then internally is where you have your strengths and weaknesses coming from your internal assessment. And by now everybody should know the factors, the internal factors in an organization. My friend here, what are the internal factors in an organization?
Yes. Yes, John. Right in the back. Ladies, right in the back. Internal factors in an organization. The guy in blue right in the back. Internal factors in an organization. Lady right here in the black. Yes. Management. Sorry? Culture. Physical plan. Who else? What else? Culture, say culture, rules, technology, strategy. We forgot the most important. People. Your climate and culture of your people, your staff.
I didn't hear that. If it is people, your human resources are very important. Folks, by now, these are things you should have known a long time ago. These aren't things you're still battling with. And we mentioned this, distinctive competencies, when you talk about the internal resources, and distinctive competencies are critical because, why are distinctive competencies so important? What do they do? Sorry?
Correct. Distinctive competencies give you an edge over your competitors because
of the resource-based view, and we'll touch on that. Did I touch on that before? Did I? Sorry? I mentioned it, right. Because as it says here, there are three critical things, right?
Rare resources are rare. They're not easily imitated, are not easily substituted. Right? Rare resources are rare. They're not easily imitated, and they're not easily substituted. So can the guys in the back hiding from me tell me, the guy right in the white hiding here, right back there, what's the difference between imitating something and substituting something? What's her name again? Literal, yes. What's the difference between imitating, the guy next to you, what's the difference between imitating and substituting? The lady in the orange shirt, what's the difference between imitating and substituting? That's what? Imitation. And what's a substitution? Right, so she said imitating is when you actually try to copy something exactly like it is, but substitution is, so give me an example of substitution. Anybody, my friend here, the apple, the perfect apple, right here. Give me an example of substitution. No, they're two different, yeah, not tea and coffee. Sorry? They're two different brands, the same type of drink. Yeah? Right, so you have sugar and you have an artificial sweetener. Right. So what's the substitute for milk? Huh? You what? Well, no. Could be, but there's another ones. Substitute for milk. Soy milk. Almond milk. Well, the powder is, yeah, right. Dairy milk, yes. It's not dairy milk. Well, people say milk, right? Because soy milk, we call it milk, but it really is not milk. So milk traditionally is a dairy product. But the substitute would be, they have a thing called soy milk and almond milk, which technically is not milk, but we call it as substitutes. That it can work just as good for protein, etc. So these distinctive competencies, folks, are things you need to know pretty well. So let's move ahead. So this is the resource-based view that we spoke about just now. So the argument is the internal resources are seen as more important, not that the only things. They also appreciate the external resources, but they consider the internal resources much more important. And we have your physical resources, your human resources, and your organizational resources. And as I said, resources that are rare, not easy to imitate or substitute. Now, I forgot to also mention, folks, that I sent out a very long email to students on Tuesday. And strangely, in my tutorial, so many people are telling me they didn't get it or they didn't see it and didn't read it. And one of the things I said is it's critical for you to prepare to read the notes for this class. So, Chad, obviously, you don't believe that my advice is wise. This Chad challenging in the yellow pants here. Are you in? So, Chad, obviously, you won't take my advice. Because once you have read the notes, you would have known that the RBB relates to these three resources right here. So we spoke about culture, all of the issues of culture. So involving the internal assessment, you're looking at the functions of management, they say the strategy, etc. So let's move ahead. The marketing function are things that would come up, your accounting and your ratio analysis. We'll deal with the ratio analysis next week. So let's look at the IFE. So first thing, for those who would have analyzed the IFE, you would have realized, my friend here, from looking at the IFE, you would have realized what about it that is similar to what we dealt with last week. Yes, madam. What about it? Right, she's very correct. So she's saying what we would have realized from doing the IFE, that it is basically the same as the EFE, that it would have the same structure. It has the same structure of weights, ratings, weighted scores, and the total weighted scores. The only difference is it would have strengths and weaknesses. And we know where those strengths and weaknesses come from. They come from the internal assessment, but specifically from doing your SWOT analysis correct. Now, one of the other things you need to know about your IFE is that your IFE speaks to
a major strength, a minor strength, a minor weakness, and a major weakness. Let me repeat. The ratings for the IFE relate to a major strength, a minor strength, right? 4 is the major strength, 3 is the minor strength, 2 is a minor weakness, and 1 is a major weakness. Everybody with that? So those are the ratings. So what are the ratings for the CPM? What are the ratings for the CPM? The same thing, right? Major strength, minor weakness, major weakness. And the EFE deals with responses. Responses. And what are the responses for the EFE? Yes? What are the responses for the EFE? A 4 is a superior response, 3 above average, 2, and a 1 is a poor response, right? So you're responding to something, and the other is I'm looking at myself. So here's the IFE. So folks, can I take a break? My mom is calling me, so I just want to find out if everything is okay. So can I take just a 2 minutes? Oh, but the notes are online, buddy. What are you wasting ink for? So just give me a minute, folks. Thank you. He says nothing wrong. Thank you. On my heart beating. So as your colleague said earlier, the IFE basic structure, but the only thing is it has strengths and weaknesses. Now, as I said last week, to repeat, for the purpose of your case in preparing the IFE, EFE, do not use more than 5 strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. 5 each, right? 5 maximum strengths or 5 maximum weaknesses. If not, you're going to have too many, and you're not going to be able to really do a proper presentation or assessment. So limit yourself 5 maximum. If you have 4, that's okay. And as we said, do your rankings, and then you can allocate weights. And we know that you allocate weights because, why do we use weights? Because which is most beneficial, that's warm. Right. We use weights to determine the importance of the most important strengths or the most important weaknesses. Because in terms of the exam, because time is limited, you zero in directly on the highest weights, which will determine these particular opportunities or threats or strengths and weaknesses are most important. And those are the ones. So you focus on the weights first, and then you look at the ratings. So even if a rating is 4, suggesting it's a major strength, that doesn't mean anything if the weight is a very, very low weight. It's not that important. So here we see you have a weight of 5.05 for 7 new senior executives with world-class skills and a rating of 4 right? And a rating of 4, but that calculation is wrong actually, it should be 0.20. And then you have the 0.10, a rating of 4.40. But the first one should actually be 0.20, that's an error. And you have, if you look at number 6, you have a weight of 0.10, rating of 3, and it's 0.30, whereas you have number 8, which has economies of scale, a weight of 0.05, and the highest rating of 4, but it's 0.20. So even though the rating is highest, the weighted score is lower than the particular strength that just had a rating of 3. And that's why you allocate weights, that even though the rate might be lower, the overall weighted score is higher. So it really gives you a true picture of why this particular factor is particularly important. And then you have the weaknesses. So which of the strengths would you focus on? You focus on the number 4, which is consumer reports, recommended gateway. Then you have number 6.10, gateway is diversifying into non-PC products. So if they are diversifying into non-PC products, what type of diversification is that? What kind of diversification that is likely to be? Right, unrelated diversification. So if it was related diversification, what kind of things might Gateway begin to sell? They now make computers, or at that time, computers and laptops. What kind of things might they engage in? Cell phones? More electronics, right. Because they'll be using chips and things like that. Or tablets, maybe tablets might be the closer match. Yeah, tablets are like the cell phones that are nearly like the tablets. And then here we have almost no budget for R&D as one of the weaknesses, and it is a major weakness. And then followed by 2 other things: shortage of cash due to successive losses, and then weak performance in the overseas market. So if it is in the overseas market, what type of strategy is that? If it is in the overseas market, what kind of strategy is that? What kind of strategy is that? It is in the overseas market. Market development. It is in the overseas market, that is market development. How many other people saw that? If it was still operating in the US, if it was based in the US, what kind of strategy would that be, Chantal? Sorry? Sherelle? Yes, Sherelle. What strategy would be that? If it had stayed in the US as a US company. Market, right, market penetration. It would be market penetration. And if Gateway had determined it wanted to buy out one of its main competitors, what kind of strategy would that be, Ms. Bamji? Yes, Madam Bamji. If they determined they wanted to buy out a competitor, what kind of strategy is that? Right here. They decided they wanted to buy out their competitor. What strategy is that? Horizontal integration is when a company determines it wanted to buy out its competitors. What is the difference, Chad?
Charlie can give you a break. Huh? You ready for me? John, what's the difference between liquidation? The difference between liquidation and divestiture. Give him a hand. Huh? Divestiture. Charge on the ball.
Right. Liquidation, I am getting out of this business, and legally I am shutting down.
Divestiture, I have 5 business units, and I realize one is unprofitable, it is draining my company. I'm going to shut down that one business unit, strategic business unit, but I am keeping my business open.
Right? So folks, these are terms, these are concepts you will have to look. They may come up in your cases actually.
So you need to look for PepsiCo. Are there any cases where they're horizontally integrated? They're part of competitors? Are there cases where they're backward integrated? Are there cases where they had to divest? Are there cases where they're forward integrated? Was PepsiCo into market development? Was PepsiCo into market penetration? So I'm saying to you folks, these cases are designed to help you in your learning to understand this course, understand how it works well. So folks, that's the IFE basically similar to the EFE and to some extent the CPM.
It's not difficult, and it's just in constructing it, you just need to spend a little time knowing how to work out the various factors. Now, if you had to do it under, well, the total weighted score,
Sorry, we missed that. So when we look at the total weighted score, 2.85, how would you classify it?
how would you classify it? 2.85?
Above average, right? You will classify it as near 3. So you can say it's more above average than it is average. So it's doing pretty okay. Not excellent.
It's doing pretty okay. So in analyzing, go ahead.
In relation to the IFE and when you're using the CPM, when you look at the total score, and if all the firms are like 2.85, 2.95, you would assume that they're in a competitive environment.
Right. That's for the CPM.
Yeah.
That's excellent. The question is, if you're looking at the CPM, and nearly all of the firms in the total weighted scores, 2.90, 2.95, right, 2.85, right, that suggests that they're very highly competitive. Competition is extremely intense because there's very little difference between what they're doing. That's an excellent question. But if you have to analyze it then, what would you look for? Because in the total weighted scores, they're extremely competitive. But what, if you were in the exam, what would you look for to analyze then? Right, you're focused on the highest base. What else would you look for then?
How much money?
Well, look generally, in looking at it generally, what would you want to focus on since they're intensely competitive? You look at, well, the industry standards will be the weights. The weight will be the industry standards. Somebody said something? Not responding. What are the ratings in the CPM? What are the ratings in the CPM? Right, so you're correct. So what you would look at to determine where do the different companies have their major strengths. Sorry? You look at the ratings. You didn't tell me that you were whispering. If you whisper with your colleague, I don't get whispers. Right? But if you say you're correct, so what you do, folks, is you can start to look at each key success factor to determine whether they have similar major strengths, or you could find company A has particular major strengths where it dominates company B. So you might have 5 or 6 key success factors that have the highest weights. So one company might be major strength in 2, another company major strength in the other 2, and the third company major strength in the other 2. So you need to look to find out where are their major strengths or minor strengths, and you can look to see where there are differences. So like finances, the company that might have the strongest financial position might have weak distribution. Right? It may just be the brand is such a powerful brand that people prepare to wait for it and pay for whatever it is. You see, because when you have brand recognition and brand loyalty, people tend to commit for a time. For a time. Right? So you look at the key success factors to identify where the differences are, if there are any significant differences. And because of that, then you can make a decision. Maybe 2 of these companies might consider merging. Or somebody is stronger than a person, so you make your strengths. One person might be stronger in staff competencies, another might be strong in terms of marketing and sales. So you can join together to become even strong companies to reduce, a strong customer base, right? So that's a very good question. Any more questions on the IFE? Any more questions? So what I'll do, take a break, just take a 5 minutes break, and then we come back. We're going to look at the CPM, look at the value chain analysis, which, as I said, is one of those very, very critical concepts in this course that actually is going to be permeating a lot of the questions you will get in your strategy class. All right, let's give me a second.